Hello and welcome to the show, everyone, wherever in the world you are listening from. I hope you're all doing okay. My name is Nick Hunter and you're listening to UFO Chronicles podcast. We will start this episode with Xander in Canada, sharing some of his UFO sightings over the years. Then we head south to the state of Arizona to speak with Michael. Now, Michael was a missile satellite systems engineer in the 1980s, and now he runs the Sedona UFO Tour, amongst other things. And tonight he will be sharing his interactions with free ETs. But first, a big shout out to Matty in Los Angeles, California, and Anthony APOC83 for listening to the show and spreading the good word of the podcast. Thank you both. If you enjoy listening to the podcast and would like to help support my work, there is a couple of ways to do this. Either you can join Patreon and become a patron of the show for as little as $5 a month, or you can donate via PayPal. And if you like, you can set up monthly reoccurring payments. All links to support the podcast are below in the show notes and on the website. Any help is extremely appreciated, and it helps the show to continue running. Now, on with the show. Hello, Xander, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Nick. Great to be on it.
Thank you for coming on today, and you're calling from Canada this afternoon.
Yeah, right in the heart of the Canadian prairies.
Lovely stuff. Now, you have some UFO encounters that takes us back to the late 1970s and early 80s in the United Kingdom.
That's right, yes.
Would you like to start at the very beginning for our listeners, please?
Absolutely. When I was a kid, my parents bought a house in a village called Tollerton, although it's hardly a village anymore. And this is in Nottinghamshire. And the house that we bought was reputed to be the highest house in Nottingham. I don't know whether I believe that's true, but it certainly did have a real good view out over the whole city. And so, like when we had the power cuts back in the 70s, I'm giving the age away now, I used to look out my bedroom window as all the lights would come on. It was great fun, very exciting for a young lad. But, I used to spend a lot of time looking out of this window, and I saw some very interesting things now and then. I remember this. Okay, this was one night. I looked out the window, and so there's our street just in front of the house, then 2 rows of houses, then a street, then houses, then fields, open fields, right, farming. And out over the fields, there were 2 very bright lights, clearly shining down from in the sky, not at great altitude, not really high. This was to the north of the village, by the way. Okay. Honestly, it looked like a car's headlights. And I remember talking to my mum about it at the time, saying, "Mummy, what's that?" And she says, "Well, is it a tractor, dear?" Well, tractors don't fly. And, they don't have huge bright lights like that. And, so on and so forth. Couldn't have been an aircraft of any sort. Well, not a fixed wing aircraft because they don't remain stationary. And it was there for a good long time. Eventually, I just dismissed it and went about stuff, but these lights were astonishingly bright. Never seen anything like it. Like 2 really great searchlights just fixed on the ground from an altitude of, I don't know, a couple of 3,000 feet maybe.
And it just remained completely stationary.
Yeah, and because it wasn't doing anything, when you're a kid you lose interest quickly, so I probably looked at it for a couple of minutes tops and then had a conversation with my mum and let it be. Well, very strange because there's no easy and obvious explanation for it. I'm very much the kind of guy who likes to find the truth behind things. And in this case, even today, I can't think of, what could have explained that.
And very, very bright.
Yes, very bright. Honestly, like 2 searchlights, all like a car's headlights with the full beam on. But it just stayed there. And the other thing was there was no noise. I might have noticed some sound. Also, these 2 lights were fairly wide apart, like wider than a car's headlights. I can't estimate the difference. And of course, memories get fuzzy over time, especially mine. But they were wider apart than an aircraft would have been, or than, even a very large road vehicle. Make sense?
Makes sense. How old were you again?
I can't give you an exact date, but we moved into that house in 1970 and we moved out again in 1980. So somewhere between those. So I would be anywhere between 5 and 15, more than likely to the younger end of that scale.
Right. Okay.
Yes, this was intriguing. Only lasted seconds, but I remember it so clearly. So to the northeast of the house and a little way away was an establishment called St. Hugh's College. And they had big grounds there with a lake and, all that bananas. And I remember looking out of the self-same window and just seeing a flaming blue object dropping from the sky there into what would have been the college grounds. It only lasted a second or two, tops, but it was very, very clear, bright and blue fire, like some kind of pyrotechnic effect. And I have absolutely no idea what that could have been. I mean, meteors, right? They get very, very hot, so they glow white. So it wasn't a meteor. It was something burning, bright blue, dropping from the sky. Queerest thing ever.
And you don't think it was a meteorite, so it seemed it was a little bit different than the usual falling meteorites.
Yes, I've seen meteors, and it was nothing like that. The other thing was it didn't like whiz down fast like a meteor does, because a meteor, it's like when it's gone, right? So this actually fell rather than, I don't know what you call it, rather than shooting down at astronomical speed.
I see, right. So it's like it was probably being slowed down as it was coming through the atmosphere.
Looking back, that's the impression I get. I'm not saying it was definitely not a meteor, but blue fire, that's weird.
It is a weird one. With meteors, they're different compounds. They can be different colors. But who's to say? It could just may have been space junk, Space junk.
Oh, you know what? In all these years, I've never thought of that. Perhaps it was. Oh, I feel such a silly sausage now for not thinking of that. It could have been, couldn't it? I don't know.
That is pretty unique. I mean, I wouldn't have thought a satellite, because obviously in those days there was a lot less satellites than there are now.
Right. Maybe rocket debris. I don't know. But again, just a peculiar thing that stayed in my memory. A vivid experience that clearly I wondered about enough as a kid for it to remain there, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a good one. And if it was space junk or a part of a rocket downed, that's pretty unique, and you don't get to see those too much unless you live in China.
Well, there certainly wasn't anything that I remember in the news. But then again, being a young lad like that, you don't take much notice of the news, do you?
That's true.
Okay, so as I said earlier, our house looked out over the whole city. So there was the city of Nottingham spread out before us. I looked out the window and I seen this thing like a firework rocket trailing sparks, but firework rockets just shoot off at rude speed, right? This was going quite slowly, right over the sort of the extreme of the city as I could see, and sparks were trailing from the back of it. And I thought, that is the queerest thing. So I very quickly, and with an unusual amount of presence of mind for a young lad, grabbed my dad's 8mm cine camera, cranked the zoom, rolled the film on this object. It still wasn't very big, even with the zoom cranked, because the zoom on them 8mm cameras was never that impressive. But, there it was, and I could see it through the viewfinder and this and that and the other. And off it went, over the horizon kind of thing. So I very excitedly, got the film out of the camera and sent it away for processing to Kodak. And when it came back, there's my roll of 8mm film. I'm super excited. The second half of the roll, so 2 minutes of it, is completely black. Not a sausage on there. And I don't know, did I do something wrong? Or did someone not want me to film that? It sounds a bit paranoid, maybe a bit conspiracy theory-ish, but I've always wondered.
I would have been gutted, Xander.
I was. I was so disappointed because as a young lad, I thought, well, holy heck, I filmed what is referred to as a UFO. So who wouldn't be excited?
That's a shame, never got that.
Yeah, and I've always wondered. But again, I remember it clearly. It looked like a firework rocket trailing sparks, just moving real slow. And it was traveling east to west, and it was probably over the north of the city, or maybe further back. If it was further back, then it must have been pretty huge, whatever it was. But gosh, quite a sight. It's hard to. I suppose you get this with a lot of people who come on the show, that it's hard to express these things in words. And in my case with this one, that's true.
A meteor, they're very, very quick. I mean, they're never slow moving. And even a comet, you know, I viewed. Oh, actually, a good example would be Hale-Bopp. You know, remember the comet that was up in the sky, and I think it was 97, 96, 97, something like that?
Yes, I actually went up to Scotland and photographed it.
Oh, did you? Wonderful.
Yeah. Where the skies are like really clear out on the moors and stuff.
And it didn't move. You know, you could watch it night after night and it wouldn't move.
Right, absolutely.
But this, you know, trading sparks, moving slowly across the sky, that's a strange one.
Yeah, very peculiar. Obviously, no explanation of it in the intervening 40 plus years, 50 plus years, goodness me, however long it is, I don't know. But again, an experience that stayed with me. And the funny thing is that, you know, I saw some queer things in the sky when I was a kid. And my life has been, in those terms, rather disappointingly run-of-the-mill subsequently. Okay, Bradgate Park, Leicestershire. It's a lovely park. Anybody who's been there will tell you it's gorgeous. You know, grasslands, fern, you see deer sometimes. There's a stream running through it, so on and so forth. Gorgeous. So my parents decided on a day out and asked them if they could take a young friend of mine along. So, you know, I'd have some company. So I went to the park, and I remember this was after the picnic lunch. Me and my friend finished our picnic fairly quickly. So off we dashed to, you know, to just do some exploring like kids do. And up the hill there's a folly. It's called the Old John Folly. If you look it up on YouTube or Google Maps or something, there's loads of stuff about it online. It's got quite some history, and it's, you know, a lot of people have checked it out, been interested in it, and so on and so forth. Above the folly, there was a circular object hovering. It was, I'm going to say, twice as wide as the folly. And in the middle of this circular object, it almost looked like there was a hole through it, because there was a brighter area, but it was, I mean, it was a long way away up the hill there, but this brighter area seemed the same color as the sky. So it looked like something with a hole cut in it. But it seemed also, at the same time, it seemed solid. And again, I had my dad's movie camera with me, and he turned to me and said, "Let's go get the camera." And so we started running back to the car like loonies. And when we came back, of course, it was gone. Yeah, a definite disc-shaped object of some sort above the Old John Folly, just hovering there. Now, what is interesting is later on, and this is a different occasion entirely, but later on, another friend of mine went to the Folly, and on the ground there, he found a piece of broken metal. And he told me about it, and I said, "You're kidding," because I thought, oh, it's a bit of me UFO, because this metal was intensely magnetic. Unfortunately, and much to my great disappointment, another friend of mine identified it as a broken piece of a speaker magnet. What a shame. Not extraterrestrial in origin after all. But the sighting itself remains as a mystery to me. Again, something I've no explanation for.
How high was it actually hovering above the Folly?
That's hard to say, because I can't, in my mind's eye, I can't really sort of guesstimate the height, but I'm going to say at that distance, and the elevation was a couple of 3, maybe 4 or 5 degrees above the Folly, if that makes sense. If you looked at the Folly from where we were standing, that would be the elevation. As to actual distance, I don't know the height of the Folly, so I couldn't really tell.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a shame that turned out to be a bit of speaker magnet.
Yes, I know, a bit of extraterrestrial metal with Britain's Roswell. How about that?
It would have been worth a fortune, and you would be hounded by the press.
Yeah, there's that too, isn't there? And, you know, I'm kind of a private guy, so maybe that wouldn't have been a good idea.
You'd have the men in black knocking at your door.
Oh, my goodness, no, don't send them round, please. Yeah, this involves the same friend that I was with in Bradgate Park, and his brother, and 2 other brothers, one of whom I'm still in touch with. Okay, we've been out partying in as much as young lads do, in Nottingham when you're not old enough to have a drink and you can't get away with it by saying to the doorman, "Oh, but I'm definitely 18." You know what I mean? And so we're walking back home, and we decided to take a shortcut along a disused railway track. The disused railway track is now in use by the Nottingham Rapid Transit System. It's been repurposed, so it's all still there. But as young lads, we used to use this railway track a lot because you could get all the way into the city without having to, go on buses and this and that and the other. It was a very handy thing to have, and it was just across the road from our school. So anyway, we were approaching the village in which I lived, and let's see, the railway track, or what was left of the railway track, ended there because the farmer had ploughed the fields up. So there was a big, huge pile of earth at the end of the track, and we just clambered up on it like young lads do. And, as we stood there just shooting the breeze and they were smoking their cigarettes and what have you, we started to notice these lights flying around over the village where I lived, which was called Ruddington, and the town where they lived, which was called Clifton. And these were unusually coloured lights, not your normal red and green like you get, port and starboard on an aircraft. And they were flying in unusual patterns, moving together and moving apart again, like no pilot in his right mind would ever do, because it just like you have to be Red Arrows or Blue Angels to do that sort of stuff, right? The best of the best. But these things were flying. They were coming in such close proximity to each other that we thought we may have seen them join. Okay, now one of the lads was in the RAF. He wasn't like a pilot or anything, but his observation skills were good. And he said that he saw this thing as 3 egg-shaped objects flying either connected or in a very, very close formation. Now, I can't say I saw that. It would be an exaggeration. But there were a lot of funny coloured lights flying around, not fast. They were just boogieing around at leisure. And we stopped and we watched for maybe 20 minutes. And then these lights flew away. I don't remember which direction they went. And we all said, well, that was strange. And the RAF chap, if memory serves, his name was Phil. He offered to do a drawing of what he'd seen, but nothing ever came of that, unfortunately. But that was quite a big thing, because these lights were covering quite a large geographical area as they moved around.
And were they moving around each other and flying about all over the place? I mean, would these kind of movements would have been bad if it had a pilot, basically?
Oh, heck yeah. Any pilot would have lost his job. They appeared to be random movements. I can't say there was certainly not any pattern that I noticed. But, maybe there was and I just didn't notice. But they were moving together and apart and flying around in wide arcs over the two towns. And from where we were, we had a really, really good view of the sky, so we could see that they were going quite a long way. Now, there was an airfield in the vicinity, and that was down near the other town in which I used to live, Tollerton. And it's still there. They do like flying lessons and all sorts now for your little Piper Cubs and Cherokees and all those little planes. But these weren't like private aircraft flying around. This was quite clearly not any kind of organized flying lesson or something. And it's the dead of night, and there wasn't any engine noise or anything like that. So how do you explain that? I can't.
And it was witnessed by all of you as well, all 3 of you. And it would have been good to see a drawing that he would have done.
Oh, I know, but when you're young lads, you've got other things to be getting on with, usually girlies, right? So,
exactly.
That's probably what happened.
That's a good one. Egg shapes, wonderful. I do now and again get egg shape. Had one from Wales, not back in the 80s. Egg shaped craft, like object, wonderful.
Right.
I actually took my flying lessons in a chipmunk.
Well, you're a pilot. Oh, respect, mate. Absolute respect. I wish I'd done it when I had the chance when I was younger.
That's when I did it. So I would have my lessons in, it was RAF Newquay I'd have my lessons.
Oh, yeah.
And because I started off in the Air Training Corps, that's where I began.
Interesting. Here, just south of Saskatoon, there's a place called Corman Air Park, which is the only independent airport left in Canada. And they will teach you to fly super cheap. Like if you go to the main airport here, the Diefenbaker Airport, it's rude money, of course. But if you go to Corman, they'll teach you in an ultralight, and you can do it for a few thousand, which is amazing. And you know what I discovered is when I had the money a few years ago, my heart just wasn't in it anymore.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, so I spent the money on music gear.
that's no bad loss. But there is nothing like being in a plane. Usually if you're controlling it, a small plane, not like a passenger plane, that's not really the same. It's being in a plane and being above those clouds, looking down. There was nothing like it.
That's great. I'd love that. Yeah, I bet that's great. I have flown a couple of times. I had the Corman Air Park used to do an open day, and you could book a flight, and they would let you take the controls for a minute or so. And so I've done a bit, but that really is the absolute extent of my experience. Well, apart from a couple of gliding lessons, which again I didn't keep up because it was just too far away and too much money.
Right, Xander, that's wonderful.
Good, I'm glad. And thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope people find this interesting.
They will indeed.
Because it is a subject that interests me. You can probably tell. When I was a kid, I was actually, long after all these things happened, in fact, this may have triggered my interest. I became a member of a very short-lived thing called BUPIC, which was the British Unexplained Phenomena Investigation Club.
Right.
And it didn't last very long. It flourished and then died, but I did become a member of it. And so I got to hear about a lot of this stuff. And also I checked out NUFOIS, the Nottingham UFO Investigation Society. They were quite famous for a while because one of their members, and his name was George something, he's undoubtedly gone by now, catalogued essentially what was a database without a computer of all the sightings that had ever been in Flying Saucer Review from beginning to end.
Good God.
Yeah. So we'd go down to the meetings. They had a house in a place called the Meadows. And we'd go there, and this George would be sitting there, and that's all he'd do all evening is go through the magazine and take down the details. And I don't know whatever became of that, because when I started working, I packed NUFOIS in because just too many demands on me time. But it's a subject in which I've always been interested, probably because of these experiences I had when I was a young lad.
Of course, yeah. And a lot of people are the same, a lot of people have an interest in this. Not everyone has had experiences, mine, but I created this show for people which have never shared their experiences before. And I had a lady on from Scotland, and she's in her 70s now, but she had never shared any of the experiences she's had. It was 50 odd years, some of these experiences.
Right.
So this is just really a place where people can come on and share them, without the whole ridicule thing. And
yeah, that's great.
And it is listened to all over the world, which is good. Just about every country we listen to.
Well, it was the East Anglia UFO group, which I'm a member of. Not that I'm in East Anglia by any remote means, but a friend of mine is in the group. Friend from years ago, and he says, why don't you try this out? So I joined the group, and then I saw your post, so I thought, what the heck?
Why not? Xander, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing that for our listeners.
And thank you so much for having me. It's great.
Okay, Xander. Okay, that's great then. Like I said, keep in contact, all right? And I will talk to you soon.
That's great. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much.
The pleasure's been mine, Xander. All right, take care of yourself.
Cheers then.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Bye.
The Fortean Film Festival is a new celebration of cinema, created by people who have a passion for all things weird and paranormal. The current season is now open for submissions. Get involved if you're a filmmaker that has a penchant for poltergeists and adores aliens, or if you're a producer devoted to demonology with a soft spot for sci-fi. The deadline for submissions to this IMDb-approved festival is fast approaching. Go to www.forteanfilmfestival.com to submit your film or buy tickets, if you dare.
Hello, Michael, and welcome to the podcast.
Nick, thanks very much for inviting me today.
Thank you for coming on to share your experiences and calling from Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona, the home of a city that I used to call hell because I melt at 80 degrees, and there's only about 4 days out of the year that it's below 80 degrees in Phoenix, Arizona. So I moved to Sedona, which of course is well known for out-of-the-box experiences. And I moved here not because of that. I moved here because it wasn't 100 degrees all year long. So, and I'm grateful. It's a wonderful place. The red rocks, the energy, the vortexes, all that stuff that's involved here, it's very attractive to me.
It's really going on there. Okay, Michael, would you like to let the listeners know a little bit about yourself and what you experienced, please, sir?
Sure. I'm going to do a Reader's Digest of my entire life. At the age of 2, I was downloaded all mathematics through analytical geometry while living in a playpen in San Diego, California. Now, I have this photographic memory I was born with, apparently. I didn't know where it came from, but it was definitely given to me. And my primary language was mathematics. My secondary language was English. At the age of 7.5, I know I was 7.5 because when you're 7.5, that half is important. When I was 7.5, I woke up from a dream one night in Glendale, California. In 1966, I woke up with basically 2.5 billion years of the solar system's history in my head from this dream. I knew which planets were here original, which planets, Venus is a rogue planet. It came in late. It tipped Earth 23.5 degrees as it came in and got captured by the sun's gravitational pull. Mars was a moon around Tiamat. Tiamat was destroyed in the Great War. The Great War had to do with the biggest planet that had our life on it, which was Tiamat, which is now the asteroid belt. Saturn and Uranus have swapped positions from what they originally were. The Draco brought the moon here to stabilize the Earth. All this stuff I knew from a dream when I was 7 years old. So those two major chunks of information or help to my brain, I didn't know my entire life why me, where it came from, or anything else until after I retired from the 1980s doing missile and satellite systems for the United States government. I retired in 1990 and got recruited by a group of people called the Inner Circle in Phoenix. And the Inner Circle, they love to uncover government cover-ups. So in 1997, on talk radio in Phoenix, I released information on chemtrails. And it wasn't about 2 weeks later that CIA threatened my family, threatened my wife, and to tell me about not to talk about that kind of stuff. I contacted television and made T-shirts and got web pages and got as public as I could do about chemtrails. And some weird things, when we were in the Inner Circle, we found Kincaid's Cave at the Grand Canyon. We found Turret Mountain, which is a weather weapon north of Phoenix. We found a variety of things that the government would rather that we hadn't found. And weird things were happening in our house, like a ball of light flew through our bedroom one night, right through the closet wall, right through the outside wall, and off. And I flew out of bed to chase it and couldn't catch it. Some months later, a shadow being walked through our house. We were out in the back third of our acre, and just happened to be looking up at the house, and a being walked through, kind of like the shadow of Bigfoot kind of looking thing, but walked through our house. And I ran immediately into the house to try to find what it was, and there was nothing there that I found. But then some months later, it was July of 2001. And in July of 2001, I was sound asleep in my California King waterbed at 3 a.m. with my lovely wife, Carla, next to me. And all of a sudden, I'm waking up. Now, I was 42 years old in 2001. And I was not accustomed to waking up in the middle of the night. Never have been, till I got older. So I'm waking up, and as I'm waking up, in that 3 seconds between unconsciousness and consciousness, I'm feeling like I'm moving, like I had one too many tequilas, like I had the spins a little bit, like I was moving without my causing it. And as I went through that next second of waking up, I realized I am moving. I'm moving out of my bed, and that's when I heard my lovely wife, Carla, make this distressing sound. And that sound was the sound of her trying to say Michael, but she couldn't say Michael because her tongue and lips and eyes and everything were frozen, numbed, and she couldn't move them. And I'm floating out of the bed. So now I'm going down the hall. In that 12-foot hallway, they rotated me from horizontal, as I was in my bed, to vertical, where I'm standing on my feet. And they did that in the hallway as they moved me down the hallway. Once my feet touched the ground at the end of the hallway, I realized that I had not been able to feel my arms or legs until that moment. But when my toes touched the ground, all of a sudden, it's like those nerves were turned on, and I could feel, and I could balance myself. And I scanned the room for the front door. I checked to see the front door first was closed and locked from the inside. Scanned in front of me to my office, which is behind Arcadia doors, where all my videos crunching and my animations and stuff that I do were doing what they do in the middle of the night. No problems there, nothing unusual. And as I turned my attention further to the left, where the wall ends in the hallway and the kitchen opens up, I felt what I call the danger oog. That's when I feel something in my gut that's probably I'm not ready for. But I turned into the kitchen anyway, expecting to see maybe 4 or 5 of those little 3.5-foot guys, because I was just floated down the hall. So it had to be something that was outside of our rules of physics, and so therefore extraterrestrial in nature. And I wasn't surprised to have extraterrestrials interface. I mean, everything else had happened to us as we were uncovering these cover-up things. As I turned into the kitchen, I expected to see, I was aiming my gaze at about the top of the stove, because that's how high I expected these beings to be, how tall. And I looked and I saw the microwave clock said 3:05, big blue numbers, 3:05. And at that point, I'm at the top of the stove, or 3.5 feet, I'm still seeing legs. And I look upward on still more legs, and I'm looking upward, and then there's the hip and the body, and I'm looking upward, and against the ceiling, which was 8'2" in my kitchen, just off the ceiling was their heads. And so these are 3 8-foot, very white, slightly blue individuals who had no hair. They had bumps on their heads. The bumps were not collinear like a reptile. They were more like random whack-a-mole had been played on their heads. Their cranial area was slightly larger in proportion to the jaw than mine is. They had about 25% larger eyes than mine if I were scaled to 8 feet tall. Their nose was about half the size of mine, and their mouth was about half the size of mine, and the mouth never moved. The jaw to neck line was about like mine, in proportion if you scaled me to 8 feet. The head to the shoulders was about 2.5 head widths to the shoulder. Their musculature was very nondescript. There wasn't a lot of delineation between like extensor and contractor muscles. It was like there was just smoothness, and I couldn't tell really where their clothing ended and their skin began either. It was like there was no seam. And yet I knew they were wearing clothing because the sheen on their chest was slightly greater than the sheen on the face. So now as I'm analyzing, and this is all taking, I don't know, maybe 2 seconds. And as I'm scanning down their bodies, I noticed that they had 4 fingers and a thumb, and their fingers were about twice as long as mine are. I didn't get down to the feet, and there was nothing that indicated male or female. But the one in the middle I perceived it as bigger. Whether it was energetically or whether the face diameter was a little larger or what, I can't really tell to this day. But I think that the leader was in the middle and was putting out more energy. I think that's what was happening. But the 3 of them were all 8 feet. So now the question is, why are they here? Are they here? My analysis went right to that I'm the center of the universe and that they're here to get information out of my head that's classified. Now, obviously, any information that they have is they apparently transported themselves through the wall of the house. They apparently would not find anything in my head to be very advanced. But at that moment, that's what entered my mind. And so I put on what I call the bulldog defense. I started throwing out data out of my mind so that the hose was so full of data flowing out, there was no way they were going to get in, was my thinking, was my logic on this. Now, this is 3 in the morning, split-second logic. Well, you're meeting 3 ETs, so you have to cut me some slack a little bit on having it all together. So I'm transmitting to them telepathically, because I know they don't speak English. This isn't Star Trek. I'm transmitting to them, who are you, where you're from? And it was really fast. The speed of thought is a lot faster than the speed of speech. And the speed of thought is even faster than the speed of light. So I'm now transmitting this phrase telepathically. Who are you from? And that's, who are you, where you're from, really fast. Apparently, these 3 ETs found that annoying. And they blanked my mind. I could not think, who are you? I couldn't put 3 words together. I was completely blanked in my mind. And then within the same moment of thinking, they popped a picture into my head. And Nick, I don't know how familiar you are with 1960s American television, but they popped a picture in my head of June Cleaver, the mother of the Leave It to Beaver show. And she always wore pearls, and she always wore a dress, even when she's vacuuming the house. It was funny. That was the culture on TV at the time. So this woman was placed, the thought of this woman, the picture of this woman was placed inside my head by the ETs, telling me I'm a petulant child, behave and be quiet. So this admonishment by the ETs to stop being a pain in their neck, it hit me humorously. And for a split second, and I realized I'm being distracted again, they're going to get into my head. So I looked back up to them, and I, in slow motion, telepathically communicated, where are you from? Who are you? Where are you? And I didn't even get the from out. And the being that was on my right, their left, made appear in front of it this shield-shaped display. Like it could have been a portal. It could have been a hologram. It could have been another placement in my mind. I am not sure, but it looked real as heck to me. And it was space in this shield-shaped object that came up to about their hip, which is about my neck. And I'm 6'1". So the picture, the image in this thing was at first just blank space. And then, which is not black, but was just dark space. And then in that same second appeared the Southern Cross. So now they're showing me the Southern Cross. And after I asked, who are you, where you're from? So what is my logical conclusion? These beings are from the Crux constellation. So now this is all happening again within a second. I look back up to ask which star, and I looked into their eyes, which was a mistake, and into their eyes, they then captured my head and completed their mission, which was to give me a bunch of information. They weren't there to take anything from me. They locked their eyes, all created a baseline of a triangle, and then the apex of the triangle was right between my eyes, basically in front of the pineal gland. So in this triangle is now coming light fragments, light particles, light beams, light bars, light sparks, light fireworks, colors of all kinds, including amazing ends at magenta and purples, just amazing light. And this lights are traveling into my head for what felt like about a 90-minute mescaline trip, where you're about 6 inches outside your body as you're experiencing everything. It's kind of what it felt like. But when it was done, my head dropped down past the clock, and it said 3:17. So I came into the room, it was 3:05. My eyes saw the clock at 3:17, which meant that this was a 12-minute and some second experience that felt like an hour and a half. At the end, I realized how to communicate with them. And I used rebus puzzles as my methodology. I'm a video producer, was a video producer. I see life at 30 frames a second. You can't slip a frame by me in video and have me not see that, what was there. So I figured out that I could communicate with them using video frame streaming rebus puzzle methodology. So I'm communicating to them like Dick and Jane go up, up, up. And they respond to me in 1 second with War and Peace, boom, 900 pages, boom. So that was the difference in the level, but I did figure out how to communicate, and so I asked a question. And so my question was, I have a question. And then they responded with, and I'm translating here, obviously, because this is pictures, I'm translating to what was very clear in the translation to me was, it better be a good question. It's like they already admonished me with the June Cleaver image, and now they're insulting me by saying that my question may not be worthy of their answer. And so I responded out of the scene, you're going to love this, out of Monty Python in the Holy Grail. There's a scene at the bridge where the troll says, "What's your favorite color?" And so I pulled that scene out of the Monty Python theme and transmitted it to them, after they told me it better be an important question. And they responded with, "We want you to know that we really appreciate your sense of humor." Now, they did not smile, they did not laugh, they did not show any facial expression, but they communicated to me, they wanted me to know that they really appreciate my sense of humor. So then I asked the real question I wanted to ask, which was why Laboratory Earth? And I got this huge download that included a bunch of the information I had in the dream when I was 7. And it was exactly the same information. And so that's when I realized at that moment that these beings are the ones that gave me the math when I was 2 and gave me the dream when I was 7. Indeed, they've been around my whole life. And what they did for me was, in this download of information, this gift of information that they gave me, I now go around, as you probably know, in Laughlin or Vegas or LA or whatever, and I answer any question on any topic that doesn't have to do with a personal human's history other than mine, and doesn't have to do with language, because they don't do language. They do everything by visual telestream directly into your head. So at this point, I was not sure what my mission was, but I knew this happened, and it put pieces together from my life that hadn't been put together before. And so I figured my mission must now be to get this information that they gave me about, mankind, the history of mankind, the future of mankind's potential, all that kind of stuff, out to people. So being a musician, I wrote songs and albums. I have a band called Terranomaly, a couple of songs which have been received really well in England, including a New American Anthem. I thought that was going to be enough. Look, I'm using my art, I'm writing music, I'm doing websites. But I kept getting this nudge that it's not enough. That's not enough. So I wrote a book that had information. It's called Wake Up and Do Something. Still not enough, not enough. Doing the tours, talking to people, that was good, but again, still not enough. So that's why I've now had to create my own TV channel in order to put more and more of this information out there so people can get to it in a real easy manner.
So basically your brain is filled with all this knowledge.
And that's the thing. I can't be sure of that, but I know that I have the addressing scheme to get the answer. Because when somebody asks me a question on a topic of which I have no research or background on, out comes this answer. And I say, well, I don't know, but that's the answer that came out. Look that up, research that. It sounds logical to me. And then I'll research it and find out, sure as heck, that, that's really what's going on. It's uncannily accurate. I'd say somewhere around 93, 95%. And I don't know that the answers are all in my head. Maybe it's just the addressing scheme. So when a question comes in, I can pull it from the Akashic record or something. I don't know exactly the process of how it comes in, but I do know that it comes in. A lot of people ask, on my tours every night, a lot of people ask things like, well, how if you're a face-to-face contactee with extraterrestrials, and you claim that you are a spiritual person, how do you square ETs with God, right? And I usually respond with a very close, quiet, one eyebrow raised face and say, so you believe in a limited God then? Because my God's unlimited, can easily create ETs. That usually has them thinking, and that's really good. People want to know, how to manifest their lives. That's a question. Like, how do you manifest your reality? Which is, I wrote a song, track 2 on my Wake Up album is called Breaking Day. It's all about manifesting reality. And I said, well, you don't have to invent the method if the method's already been written and it's in the Book of Thomas. So if you want to know how to manifest, all you got to do is find the Book of Thomas that Constantine was so rude to pull out of the library, the Bible. And you'll find that it's a two-step process. It's simple, but it's not easy. You have to practice, but it is simple. You want to know how to manifest? You picture the final frame of what it is that you're trying to achieve. That final frame of the video that you're trying to achieve. When you've reached it and you know it and you've gotten there and you see the detail in that frame, the nth detail, you can zoom in and see every fly on the wall, every fingernail on a person's hand. You can see, you zoom in, you see all that detail, and you feel the joy in your heart as if it's already happened. And that, Nick, is how you step into the reality that you want to manifest.
So if someone was to ask you something like, if the universe was born at the Big Bang, what existed before that?
Yeah, I happen to know I was given that in my dream when I was 7.5. I was given the instance that the vibration happened. There was no Big Bang. There was the void, and the void I'm going to parallel into a tray of damp sand. Okay, so the verse, which you call universe, there's many of them. That's why I don't call it universe. It's just our verse. Our verse was like, for this metaphor, was like a tray of wet, damp sand, okay? And it just sits there. Then the creator, the master of this verse, caused a vibration to happen, created frequency. And that you can liken to putting a speaker underneath that tray of wet sand and putting on a frequency. Now, all of a sudden, that tray of damp sand starts forming circles and patterns and arcs and things, right? That wasn't there before. That's a derivative of the sand and the vibration. And that is what matter is in the verse. It's a derivative of the energy and the vibration. So before the creator did it, the creator vibration thing, there was only the void. There was only the tray of sand. Now, how long was the tray of sand there? That's the good question, continuing the metaphor. Like this verse, verses, by the way, are spheres. And so this verse, before this verse, what was there? Well, there was void, and there may have been a different verse, and that different verse may have popped or collapsed or whatever, and now it's time to make a new verse. And so a creator makes a new verse, and that new verse is a tray of sand, and then it creates the vibration, and that creates the images in the sand, which creates all matter, all cohesiveness of anything. All electromagnetic cohesiveness was done because of the vibration. Before that, there was none. Does that answer your question, Nick?
It does, kind of. Do you think that there are others which they have done a similar thing to, where they've inputted information into people's craniums?
Well, the mission, as I understand it, which consisted not of just 3 ETs, but many different beings, many different kinds of beings, and many different locations. Their information to me was between 2000 and 2002, okay? So 2000, 2001, 2002. So it's a 3-year period between 2000 and 2002. And this was in July of 2001, mind you. They indicated to me in past tense that they had contacted, okay, 1 million humans, roughly, 1 million humans in round numbers, and given them information. Now, this was the middle of 2001, and they're telling me that back in 2002, right? So these beings are nonlinear in their existence on time. That's my translation of that. So between 2000 and 2002, they contacted 1 million people and gave them information. Now, did they give them all exactly the same information as me? I have no idea. Didn't get that part of the information, and because it involves personal human histories, I can't get the answer.
Introducing the High Strangeness Coffee Blend by Redacted Coffee Company, a medium roast of the Brazilian kind. This medium roast offers flavors of chocolate and vanilla combined with a distinct fruity taste and a unique sweet floral aroma. The experience of high strangeness doesn't end there, with a sweet butter aftertaste that doesn't fade as your coffee cools. This coffee regains its flavors all the way through your cup, ensuring it truly is good to the last drop. The veteran-funded, employee-owned Redacted Coffee Company and UFO Chronicles podcast have partnered together to bring you the best coffee on and off the planet. Get 20% off your first order now at redactedcoffee.com/UFO. That's redactedcoffee.com/UFO. Or follow the link below in this episode's description or click on the banner of my website. This podcast is fueled by coffee oozing high strangeness. So what are you waiting for? Wake up to the strange.
Here's the thing. Are you familiar with Drake's equation?
Sure, yeah, I am.
Okay, so I did a parody of Drake's equation called Michael's equation. And Michael's equation goes like this. So you've got 1 million people, for argument, we'll just say, you've got 1 million people that were contacted. Now, a 1 out of 10 people is not going to blow that off as a dream, as a vision, as a bad acid trip or whatever. 1 out of 10 is not going to blow it off. People, they blow up, they see things at the corner of their eye, they blow it off. It's a sprite, it's an actual thing. Could be, an energy being, could be whatever, but they blow it off. Now it can't be, it can't exist because it doesn't fit, the grade school paradigm. So now of 1 million people, only 1 out of 10 are going to treat it as serious. Now we're down to 100,000. Now, language skills, Nick, as you may know, are not taught very well. Being able to take this visual information, the stream of information, and convert it into cogent messaging to reach people from 7 years old to 70 years old, there's just not a lot of people that have that language skill. In fact, I'm going to say 1 out of 10 from most of what I read on Facebook and Twitter. So now we're down to 10,000 people. Then 1 out of 10 people is not afraid of public speaking. It's the biggest fear of adults is public speaking. So now we're down to 1,000 out of that million that are potentials going out and giving the message. But the problem is only 1 out of 10 of those people has the connections, resources, assets, or playing out chutzpah to go and be seen on television and big stages and big conferences around the country and the planet. So what we now have is 100 people who got the information, who have the ability to communicate to masses. And that's not enough for the other 7.5 billion people to get the information. So I'm trying to ramp up every way, every method, every vibration that I can to get this information to people. That there's 2 main pieces of information that I communicate, that they communicated to me, that I'm supposed to communicate to others. 2 main pieces of information, besides the questions that anyone may ask. Okay, and that's this. Number 2. There's no such thing as a benevolent species. There's no such thing as a malevolent species, all right? No such thing as benevolent species, no such thing as malevolent species. Not all Draco want to eat you. Not all Pleiadians are here to help you. We need to approach all life in that way. I mean, from ETs and people down to snakes and dogs and horses. I mean, there's those with really friendly dispositions, and there's those with really aggressive, mean dispositions, and it doesn't matter what species it is. So you need to know that you judge a being based on what it does, not on where it's from or what it looks like. Okay. That leads us to the number 1 piece of information, the most important piece of information that they gave me to give everybody. And that is basically the reason for living, why we're here. Okay. So we are here. This is really complicated, and I'm going to do it in 4 words, Nick. We're here to do for others. Okay, so we are here to raise the benefit and consciousness of people, animals, rocks, trees, the ether, the consciousness itself, depending on what levels you're tied in at. We are here to raise that overall balance of good versus evil. And by helping, just in the act of helping people selflessly, it raises the balance in our favor. So we don't have to actually go out there, all of us, and grab a sword and take off the heads of the bad guys. Some of us do have to do that, but that's not for all of us. For all of us, however, is the raising of the conscious level of good over evil. We have to call it out. We have to admonish it. We have to not support it. We have to help others eliminate their fears. You know, fear is the great stopper of all mankind. And knowledge defeats fear. If you have knowledge of every corner of your room and under your bed and in your closet and everything else, you can't be afraid of the boogeyman, because the boogeyman can't be in your room because you've already got the knowledge that the room is completely clear of the boogeyman. That's how you teach kids not to be afraid of the boogeyman, by the way. You show them every corner of the room. You turn the light off, turn the light on, you turn the light off, you turn the light on. There's no difference. It's the same. There's nothing in the room. And then they learn through knowledge that there's no reason to fear.
I mean, when it comes to fear, I mean, there's a lot of people today which use fear to perpetuate their control.
Oh, sure. The two plays that the deep state has, I allegory to basketball. You know, basketball, there's two plays that you can teach an 8-year-old team. And if they execute those two plays really well, they will go undefeated. And that is give and go and pick and roll. If you can give and go and you can pick and roll with efficiency on your 8-year-old basketball team, your kids will be champions. Here's the thing. The deep state has two plays that they've used against the people forever. And the reason they use them is because the people still fall for it. Those two plays are divide and conquer and problem, reaction, solution. So as long as they can get the Republicans against the Democrats, the labor against the lords, the whites against the blacks, the men against the women, the gays against the straights, as long as they can divide you, then you're fighting each other and they're not spending any weaponry at all, right? That makes you both more easily controllable, because you're not paying attention to what the real people, the real bad guys are doing, right? And they've done this over and over, Nick. You know, they've done this since since the CIA started. They've done this with MK12. They've done this with all this stuff, all these projects for decades. And so why change a plan if it still works?
People still fall for it.
Yeah, now let's hope that people learned enough, and it's so recent. I was uncovering, my wife and I were deep diving and uncovering all this stuff back in the 90s. Transformation of America and Thanks for the Memories are two books that go deep into the MK Ultra programming of sex slavery and all that kind of stuff. So, I've been covering this stuff for a long time and trying to get information out for a long time. And I'm glad that now there's more and more avenues for this information to be able to be delivered to the public. The more that they squeeze, it's like right out of Star Wars, the more they squeeze, the tighter they squeeze, the more slip through their fingers.
Right, yeah.
And you and I are, it's like I said, real people with cameras have become the only truth on TV. The media is us.
Exactly. Well, you certainly can't trust junk that comes off TV these days. To be honest, I haven't watched the TV in about nearly 20 years.
Yeah. It's been about 10 since I've had commercial channels.
Right.
But I got to have the internet connection, obviously, to do what I do and for you to do what you do. But I watch Star Trek because I know what's on there, or something. But I definitely don't. I don't watch these new shows that are all twisted in their purpose. And that's one of the things that on my TV channel, on Truth on TV, I've got Andy Griffith shows. I've got Flash Gordon from the 1950s, right? I've got some good old. It's all God, family, country centric with no content that would be embarrassing to your grandma or your grandchild.
Gotcha.
Kind of my method.
Yeah, like in the UK, the stuff we have on these days is I call it chewing gum for the eyes.
Yeah.
Pure junk.
In other words, completely useless.
Completely useless. You also ran some UFO tours in Sedona. Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about that?
Where did you hear a rumor like that? Yeah, actually, it's true, Nick. I ended up with the motivation of getting reality into people's heads about the space program, and I figured the best way to do that is to show them part of our $35 trillion space program. So I have Arizona UFO Tours, and I am the Sedona UFO Tour guide, but ArizonaUFOTours.com is where you want to go. And what I have is I have these $3,500 military night vision goggles that are illegal to send out of the country because they're too classified. And every adult on my tour gets their own goggle. You don't have to share like the other guys in town. So everybody gets their own goggle. At sundown, we meet, and everybody follows. Have you seen my truck, Nick? Space Bourbon 1.
I have. Your tours are world famous.
Isn't it a trip? Yeah. So everybody follows me up to my airport location because the airport is the highest point in Sedona. It's on top of a bluff. They cut off the top of a bluff and put a runway. I started flying in there in 1981, and the spot up there is beautiful. It's perfect for looking all the way around. High sky, low sky. It's all visible, and in about an hour. Well, in 2018, when I started doing this, in the hour and 15 minutes or so that we have goggle use, we were seeing about 12 to 15 spacecraft and satellites and airplanes. Now, are you ready for this, Nick? In just 4 years, traffic is quadrupled and more. We're seeing 50 to 60 ships a night now, and the satellites and the airplanes. So we have huge traffic going on, and it's because we are at war, and we're in the middle of it, and we get to see with this night vision a lot of the 900 ships that are flying in the inner solar system and in orbit protecting Earth right now from this scourge we call the cabal. So you can go up to our ArizonaUFOTours.com and click on make a reservation and put in the date you'll be in town. And I don't take money ahead of time. I wait until it's time to actually leave because I don't think anybody should wait for a refund in case they chemtrail the heck out of us and we can't go that night. It's a lot of fun. We have all ages, families. I have 2 levels of tour. You can read all about it on the site. It's always good fun and lots of good information exchanged.
And the tours are very regular, are they, through the week?
Every night that it's clear, I'm running a tour. So about 27 nights a month average, it looks like I'm running a tour. And it can be anywhere from 2 to 20 people. You never know.
So I would certainly suggest booking ahead.
Yeah, especially if you want to get a personal tour. That's where your party has me exclusively for you. It's a little more money, a little more comfort. I can come to your location. You want to book at least 2 weeks out on that. On a nightly tour, usually if you get your reservation in like 2 nights ahead of time, I can squeeze you in.
That's great. So if people are looking for something different to do this year, then certainly get yourself to ArizonaUFOTours.com.
Perfect.
If I'm ever in the area, I will certainly come along there, Michael.
Oh, well, if you're ever in the area, of course, all you got to do is just let me know, and I'll just squeeze you in on a tour on me. Comp.
That would be great.
Yeah, media can do that. And if you have a companion with you, you can bring her as well. And
I will certainly bring the wife.
Put you guys in. Well, I look forward to meeting you at one or more of these events. It's a good time. It's fun. I like to have fun. I love kids. Kids are great on the tour because they ask questions. You have no idea what's going to be coming out of their mouths.
That is true, yeah.
And it's super, super fun. And all the kids get a toy on my tour and stuff. So it's a good time. I love exchanging information with people. I'm glad to have been able to meet you on this call, Nick.
Michael, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing that for our listeners.
Bless you. Until next time.
Yeah. Take care, Mike. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
That is all for this week, I'm afraid. Keep updated and connected with the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you have an encounter that you'd like to share on the podcast, you can email me at ufochronicles@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me via the contact page on my website at ufochroniclespodcast.com. A big thank you to Xander and Michael for sharing tonight, and thank you all for listening. I will be back next week. Till then, stay safe and keep watching the skies. Goodbye.